What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So yesterday at their keynote event in New York City, Google officially announced the Pixel 4 and a handful of other new things as well that we'll be seeing in the coming months. I was fortunate enough to attend the event and had the chance to go hands-on with all of the new stuff. So in this video, I thought I'd share some of my initial thoughts and impressions. I was able to play around with the new hardware for about an hour or so definitely not enough time to go too in-depth with anything, but I do have a Pixel 4 of my own now that I'll be using non-stop over the next few days, and you can of course expect a full review soon, along with plenty of comparisons and things as well. So just like the last few years, we once again get two sizes with the Pixel 4 and a few different color options to choose from. There's the standard sized 5.7-inch Pixel 4 that will retail for $799, and at that price you get 64 gigabytes of internal storage. The larger 6.3-inch Pixel 4 XL sells for $899 and also ships with 64 gigabytes of storage, though both phones can be bumped up to 128 gigs for $100 more. For the colors this year, we've got three options to choose from: just black, clearly white, and oh so orange, which actually isn't that orange. It's more of a peach or like a salmon. It's kind of a lighter, more muted shade. Now, a couple things to note about the colors here. The white and the orange are that new matte finish that we've seen on Pixel devices in the past, but rather than sort of a half and half with glossy glass details, the whole phone, including the sides, are all a smooth matte finish. The black color, however, is a glossy glass with the same matte black sides, and that phone is a fingerprint magnet, obviously. Personally, I think I would have liked to have seen a matte black option. That would have been really cool, but glossy is what they went with here. And by the way, if you do want the oh so orange color, Google mentioned in their keynote that this one is actually a limited edition pre-order exclusive, so you might only have the chance to snag this one if you end up pre-ordering the device or grabbing one on launch day. As far as the design, the rest of the phone ended up being exactly what we expected from the leaks and rumors, and from Google's own sort of pre-release teasers too. Like I mentioned already, smooth matte sides with a colored power button on each of the phones, which is a nice detail, and the volume rocker is right below that. Around back, a big square camera bump that I'll talk about in just a minute, and up front, a new OLED display with that 90Hz refresh rate that was rumored. You'll get a 1080p display on the smaller Pixel 4 and a Quad HD display on the Pixel 4 XL. And as far as a 90Hz screen, it really does make the phone feel fast and smooth, and overall the user experience is great. But something to keep in mind, it's sort of like an adaptive 90Hz display in the sense that sometimes it'll drop down to 60Hz in certain apps to help save battery life, or in instances where the user wouldn't notice, like if you're not directly interacting with the phone. This is actually a pretty interesting move, and I'm curious to see how much that adaptive technology does help with battery life, especially since I think we ended up getting a little less than we had hoped for. The Pixel 4 packs a surprisingly small 2800 mAh battery inside, while the Pixel 4 XL has a 3700 mAh, which I think is more on par with what you might expect. I know capacity isn't everything. If the phone is optimized well, especially with Android 10, it might not matter as much what the numbers say on paper, but it'll be interesting to see how the smaller Pixel 4 holds up. Also inside these phones is the Snapdragon 855 processor, Adreno 640 GPU, and 6GB of RAM. Pretty standard 2019 specs, I think, but again, I know a lot of people were maybe hoping to see Google bump that up to the Snapdragon 855 Plus processor, and maybe even a couple extra gigs of RAM. Besides all that, we've got wireless charging, USB-C, no headphone jack, and an IP68 water and dust rating. But let's jump into some of the more notable new features, and first up, of course, are all of the upgrades to the camera. Well, I should say cameras, because the Pixel 4 now has two of them. A standard 12.2 megapixel f1.7 aperture main shooter, and a new secondary 16 megapixel f2.4 2x telephoto lens. Google, during their keynote, actually said outright that they think a telephoto lens is more useful than a wide angle, which I'm not sure I agree with personally, but that's what they decided. And with a dual lens setup, we're going to see improvements in portrait pictures, particularly with bokeh, edge detection, detail in hair on people and fur on animals, and of course with the zoom. Also, on the software side of things, Google announced that the Pixel 4 offers live HDR Plus with dual exposure controls, which is pretty cool. You can actually change the shadows and the highlights in the viewfinder before taking a picture. And that viewfinder now offers a real-time look at how your image will turn out when the picture is snapped. There's also been updates to auto white balance and night sight as well. One of the coolest new features of the Pixel 4 is the ability to use it with astrophotography. So with just the phone and a tripod, you can take super long exposure shots of the night sky, and it'll stitch together a beautifully detailed picture of the stars and any surrounding objects, like trees or buildings, even if the shot changes due to wind, lights, or other conditions. Of course, I can't wait to put all these new camera features to the test, especially the updated portrait mode. I think with these updates, the Pixel 4 will likely stand alone as the best smartphone camera on the market, and I can't wait to see some side-by-side comparisons with the iPhone, the Note, and last year's Pixel devices as well to really see the differences. Now up front, you probably noticed by now that Google opted for a full top bezel that is even a little larger than the bottom, and that's because of the new radar sensor that's packed up inside there. Now this new hardware brings a new feature to the Pixel 4, which Google calls Motion Sense. It's nearly identical to the gesture controls we saw on the LG G8. Basically, you can wave your hand in front of the phone, and depending on the app, the different gestures will cause different things to happen. So for example, you can swipe left and right to change songs, and the gestures work system-wide, so they aren't like Google specific or app specific. Spotify, for example, can be paired with the gesture controls right away. There's this little glowing bar that you'll notice on the top of an app, and that'll be your indicator that gesture controls are available. The Google employees who were demoing the phones got the gesture controls to work nearly every time, since they probably have had lots of time to practice. But personally, for me, they were a little finicky, which I think is expected. Now, in addition to swiping, the Pixel 4 will also recognize some other things with that radar sensor. When an alarm is going off, as you approach the device, the alarm will start to decrease in volume, and you can cover the phone to silence it and then swipe it away to dismiss it. And also, with unlocking the device now, there's no more fingerprint sensor at all, nothing on the back, nothing under the display, you only have face unlock. Now, Google says their face unlock on the Pixel 4 is the fastest in any phone, and part of the reason is because of that radar sensor. The phone will sense as you start to approach it and pick it up, and it'll immediately start the sequence of unlocking. So by the time you even have the device up and tilted towards you, it's likely unlocked and ready to go because of that radar sensor that recognized everything that was happening. A couple other things to note: you've got that squeeze feature that launches Google Assistant, and Google Assistant has been redesigned and updated here as well on the Pixel 4. It's smarter, especially when completing like one task after another back to back to back, so that's great to see. And Google also spent a good deal of time going over their new voice recording app. With this, you can transcribe audio in real time, even with the phone being offline or in airplane mode. You don't have to be connected to the internet at all, and the results are crazy accurate. They were actually transcribing their entire keynote in real time while they were talking about it, and when I tried it, even in the loud and crowded demo space, it worked really well. So that's basically everything you need to know about the new Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL. You can pre-order the phone right now, and it's going to launch on every major US carrier, which is pretty cool, so it should be available for just about everyone when it launches on October 24th. Of course, the Pixel wasn't the only new hardware announced by Google yesterday. They also gave us a brief look at the new Google Pixel Buds. These are totally redesigned and are actually truly wireless this time. They come in a bunch of different colors, and you can see that they really change things up from the first generation Pixel Buds. These are smaller, and they're designed to sit flush and evenly up against your ear. They'll have touch and tap controls, and you can launch and interact with Google Assistant hands-free. They also even have long-range Bluetooth, so you can be up to a football field away from your phone and still use the buds. You'll get 5 hours of music playback time on a single charge and 24 hours total with the case. Now, unfortunately, we won't be seeing these anytime soon. Google says they'll likely launch in the spring of 2020, and they'll retail for $179. Google also unveiled the new Pixelbook Go, their latest Chromebook. This little guy is 13 millimeters thin and weighs just 2 pounds, but you'll get 12 hours of battery life on a single charge, which is pretty impressive. It's got a bit of a redesign with some new color options and a textured underside for easy handling. Obviously, it is still a Chrome OS device, so not a full-featured laptop, but for a $649 starting price, it's the cheapest Chromebook yet, and you have some different configuration options to bump up those internal specs for up to an i7 processor and 16 gigs of RAM. Though for right now, it is just one size, 13.3 inches. Finally, the last bit of new hardware Google unveiled had to do with their Nest-related devices. The Google Home Mini is now the Nest Mini. It's the same price as last year with an additional new sky blue color option and some new features including better sound, an extra microphone, and an included wall plug mount and machine learning. And you can also communicate between rooms with multiple Nest Minis and make calls using Google Duos. Google Wi-Fi was also updated and is now Nest Wi-Fi. It's the same mesh setup but with a fresh new design and new colors to encourage you to keep the device out in the open, which is something you'll likely want to do since the secondary mesh point also doubles as a Google Assistant speaker. You'll also see 2 times faster speeds and 25% more coverage with 2 mesh points, likely good enough for up to 85% of homes in the US. So there you go, that's everything you need to know about the hardware announced yesterday at Google's event in New York. Let me know what you think about the new Pixel 4, the Pixel Buds, or anything else. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.